What's up everybody, Dan here. Thanks so much for joining in for another video. So unless you're living under a rock, you will have seen that Automobilista 2 version 1.6.3 released last Friday. And so here in North America, that was right before the long Thanksgiving holiday. So most of us had a 3-day weekend. Some of us 4-day weekend, and what that meant is we all had a lot of time to try it out. And I have. Now, I didn't release content right away because I wanted to make sure I had some time messing with everything and taking a look at it and see what I like and see what I don't. And there is some that I like, and there's some stuff that I'm having issues with. It's kind of a mixed bag here. But mostly what I'm going to concentrate on is a few things. One, I want to talk about the user interface because I think that's a big improvement. Two, I want to talk about the physics and force feedback in general, and that's really the heavy topic that I'm sure everybody wants to know about, so I'm going to give my input on that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a few issues I'm having. So, yeah, but I'm just going to try to make this as quick as possible. The gameplay you're seeing in the background is an over-the-shoulder camera of my latest triple monitor setup, which I've just got set up. Yeah, and so hopefully you'll enjoy that. But let's just get right into it. Really quick, I'm going to hit on some of the content that was added currently. I don't know if it is right now, but at the time of me last playing it earlier today, the DLC content that was added, which is some tracks and some cars, are still available for everybody for free, but that may have changed by the time this video is uploaded. I know at some point this week, today's a Tuesday when I'm filming this, at some point this week they have said that paid content will actually turn into paid content and you will have to buy it. So if it still is up and you haven't tried it, run over and try it out and see if you like any of it for free before you buy it. I've tried most of it and it is all really, really good. So, I mean, just like I've always recommended any of the AMS2 content, it's really good. So let's talk about the user interface really quick. So the user interface, I think, is a huge improvement, and not necessarily because of the way it looks. I don't necessarily like this new version more or less than before, and vice versa. I think that they both serve their purpose. I think that things are generally organized better here with the new user interface. I also really like the presets that they have available on the top right corner. Those are pretty handy if you want to just jump right into some specific type of racing. That was not available before. I also see that there's a career mode coming, but it is not available. It did not drop, but the button is there. So hopefully we'll get a pretty cool in-depth career at some point. But yeah, I mean, as far as like being vibrant, I think it looks a little more colorful, a little more adult. And then also the user interface will like change the background color depending on what what settings you pick, what presets you pick, and stuff like that. So overall, I think the user interface is a good improvement. I like it. Do I like it better than before? Yes and no. It really doesn't matter to me, but it looks pretty good. One thing that I will say that is much better about the user interface than the old one is that I used to have this issue when I'd go into the settings. If you'd go into like graphical settings or controller settings, sometimes if you were trying to reach settings that were below what was in your visual area on the screen and you needed to scroll down to the bottom, sometimes you just could not get those settings up to where you could actually click on them. And now it is much improved. There's a scroll bar on the right hand side. You can use your scroll wheel on your mouse if you have one. If not, you can just click and drag the bar on the right hand side, just like you could do in any other Windows menu. So you can get to any kind of setting. That used to drive me berserk sometimes, but they've got that fixed. So that's a huge improvement. Now let's move over real quick. Let's talk about physics and force feedback together. Now I will say I have always been a big fan of AMS2 since way back when it came out originally, and they've made some pretty drastic changes over the course that it's been out. I'd say this is probably the biggest leap, but overall I have always thought that AMS2 kind of fit almost in its own category. So hopefully I don't ruffle a lot of feathers when I say this, because I do really love AMS and I've recommended it a lot of times, but I think it fell previously before this update somewhere in between a Forza and an iRacing, or somewhere in between like a Forza and a Assetto Corsa. Not that the physics weren't realistic, because I really don't have any way to base that, other than basing it against other games. But as far as like a difficulty level, AMS2 before this update felt a little more forgiving to me than something like an Assetto Corsa or definitely iRacing. So that made me, I kind of categorize it somewhere in between your Forzas and your Gran Turismos, and not quite up there with the actual Sims. I hate to use that term because that's really going to get somebody mad, but you know what I'm saying. Like, if you just look at like difficulty levels and stuff like that, it just seemed like it was a little more forgiving prior to this update. Now that is no longer the case. This was a pretty drastic change, and this is the first time in a long time that I've raced in AMS2 that my hands were getting pretty sweaty. You really have to be on your P's and Q's now. It's not as forgiving. You can make mistakes, and the mistakes that are made are very detrimental, and it's just overall is just not that it's worse or better, it just is a little more, it requires you to be a little more locked in, which I personally like better. Look, I'm not going to say that this is better or worse. I'm just telling you how it's different. It just requires you to be a little more locked in and focused and ready, and it's not as forgiving as before. With that being said, though, it's still the same old fun game. They've just bumped up a notch with the physics, and the best way I can explain it is it's not as forgiving. You really have to be careful. You can't just go all out the entire time like you used to be able to, and just not be careful about what you're doing. So hopefully that makes sense. It hasn't made it better or worse, it's just different. So if there are people out there that enjoyed the easy, forgiving nature of it, you may be surprised to see that that's not any longer the case. But I think that will actually make a lot of the hardcore sim lovers more of a fan of this. So I think that's going to be a good change for them. Force feedback, to me, feels totally different. I was running, I believe it was called Default Plus. I think that's what it is. Yeah, Default Plus or something like that. I'm running that exact thing now with the new version of the game. So if it was Default Plus or whatever it was before, I haven't changed it. It's still the same. And I can tell you, I feel a lot more of what's going on underneath me with the car. There's a lot more road effects. The curbs feel better. Dare I say, I do feel like I feel a lot more of the front end of the car. That was kind of one of the issues that I had previously before, actually since the beginning of AMS2. I never really got a good feel of what the front end of the car was doing, but I do now. I mean, while it's not as forgiving and you feel like you could wreck pretty easily, you still can understand what's happening through the force feedback. So it gives you a chance to survive. I hope that makes sense. I'm just trying not to go too deep and too detailed. I think it's better. The force feedback 100% is better in my opinion, but of course you need to watch a lot of videos, see what other people say. This is just in my opinion on testing it for the past 3 days or so, 4 days, however many it's been since Friday, about 4 days. I've tried it on multiple different setups, single screen and triple screens now for the last 2 days, and yeah, visually it's stunning just like it's always been. I haven't really noticed a huge difference in the visual textures. It still looks just as good as it did before. I've always been able to crank AMS2 up because it's a very, or it used to be before this, and I'll talk about this in a second, but it's always been generally very stable, very easy to get high frame rate. Now that's going to slide us in, and I'll finish with this, to the couple of issues I've been having. The main issue is on certain tracks and certain environments, Sebring for sure, so let me know if you're having this issue in the comments. It is absolutely wrecking my system on triple 1080p screen, so it's not like super hard to run this. And just for reference, in any other sim I can easily get 120 FPS with a full grid of cars, no problem, even at the start of a race. I've got a pretty powerful PC, but for whatever reason it's hit or miss. Certain tracks, sometimes it's worse than other. For example, earlier I was running Sebring, I got in, it was barely getting up to about 55 FPS at the start of the race. Didn't seem to get better as traffic cleared up. I got out, got completely out of the game, got back in, changed no settings, and then all of a sudden in that exact same scenario, I was getting like 28 FPS. So I'm not sure what the deal is. I hop out of that, get into another track, and there's no issues, and I'm back up in the 100 FPS. So I'm having some kind of issues graphically. Maybe it's a bug. I'm doing some research. I'm trying to dig into it. If you're having that issue and you've figured out how to resolve it or whatever, please let me know in the comments below. Yeah, so that's really it. The AI So the AI, this is the other kind of issue, not really an issue, just I guess something I've noticed, and I'm really going to end it on this. So the AI is better generally after this update, but what I have noticed that they don't do as well is they give away positions too easy now. And that's even if you have them cranked all the way up and their aggression all the way up. Used to, if I was coming alongside someone with the aggression all the way up, they wouldn't just give me that position. And you may even see this in some of the footage on the screen here. But I find that a lot of times as I'm coming into a corner, if I just get too close to them, they very rapidly move out of the way. And I don't remember them doing that before. I'd rather they just stay in there and try to keep that position. You would assume that they would. If you've got the aggression up high. But again, this could just be a car track combo. So far, it seems everything I've tried it has kind of given me the same results. Don't get me wrong, overall, they're much better. And they race each other harder. They seem to make more mistakes, which is more realistic. And there's more opportunities for you to pass and stuff like that, which makes it feel more like you're racing in an online lobby rather than AI racing, which is great, but I just kind of think they may need to do some tweaking. And if you go on their blog, you can see they're still dialing in the AI for this new update, so they're probably still working on that. But overall, I think this update is fantastic. Other than the few bugs that I'm feeling, definitely a harder, more sim-like experience in my opinion. Again, watch a lot of videos, check it out for yourself, see what other people have to think, but that has been my experience for the last 4 days or so of pretty extensive testing. So that's my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what you think. Again, I've always thought that AMS2 is the best single player experience period right now. Race Room is a pretty close second. And if you're willing to set up iRacing, that can also be a pretty phenomenal single player experience now as well, now that they've got the AI pretty dialed in. But yeah, I love AMS2. I think the update was a positive move in the right direction. And yeah, they'll have some more dialing in to go, I'm sure. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, please click the like button. And remember, if you're not subscribed, please click that subscribe button. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video. We'll see you later.